The following episode of the Comics and Crypto podcast is for informational purposes only, and anything expressed by the hosts or their guests is solely their opinion. This podcast does not constitute financial advice, and anyone wishing to invest should seek their own independent financial or professional help. Have fun and enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Sean O'Hare, and I know comics.
Hi, I'm Spencer Vogel, and I know crypto.
Hi, I'm Kevin Lee Loader, and I don't know shit. This is the Comics and Crypto podcast.
Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, collector's world in a digital age. Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, it's where the next billionaires will be rich. It's comics and crypto.
Will, hey, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, what's up, guys? Excited to be on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Will. Welcome.
We're admiring your background.
Oh, yeah.
So much cool stuff back there.
This is the studio, and I could tell you guys are like me. We collect a lot of like random stuff and video games, comics, toys, and whatnot. And I would just say that my motif does not fit my wife's motif. Really compatible, and she's much more refined than I am.
Yeah.
So all the stuff that does not fit her style, basically send it to your office. So this ends up being my spot. So to be myself and hang up my stuff here,
Love it.
That's great.
So cool.
Yeah.
So I guess it's safe to say that you're a collector. So what are some of the things that you like to collect?
My love for collecting, it started off really with comic books and cards. So,
Nice.
I think I would say the first few things that I started collecting was basketball cards, and baseball cards as a kid.
Yeah.
My dad was really into collecting baseball cards. That kind of got me into collecting. I remember putting the binders together with him and like doing it by team. So you'd have all the Seattle Mariners, you'd have all the,
Cool.
Florida Marlins, and you would kind of organize it. Then you would identify the rookie cards, and he would teach me like which is more valuable and how to organize them by rarity and whatnot. So that's what got me started. Then, again, I was born in the mid 80s. So I grew up as a kid in the 80s and 90s. So Pogs was a really big thing.
Yeah, Pogs. Yes.
Yeah.
Pogs were huge. So I was a big Pogs collector, and then I would all get all the hologram slammers. You remember?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, big time.
Have you heard of Cogs by any chance? There's on the Wax blockchain, they basically did like a re-release. It's a digital version of Pogs.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, as NFTs. Yeah, definitely check those out.
I'll have to check those out. So that was it. It was the cards and Pogs were big. And then I have an older brother. Actually, he's like 15 years older than me. And he basically was like a second dad to me. And he would take me to the comic book store down in Miami all the time, and we would just go hunting through the $1 bins looking for awesome comics. And I just remember there were so many great series back then, so we started collecting comics. So I would say it'd be cards, Pogs, and comics. That was the start. Then of course action figures were a big thing in the 90s. Covered the action figures. Then I became a gamer, kind of transferred over to the gaming world, and it kind of went from there. So to this day, you see a lot of nostalgia. I got a lot of things around here. You see Mega Man in there in the back, and I brought my, these guys were huge, for me with the Turtles. I mean,
Turtle action figures are so cool. Yeah.
This yes.
Did we just become best friends?
Yes. We did it.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
Nothing says my childhood more than this.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
What's your background before OnChain Studios, and what inspired you to get into crypto and NFTs?
Sure. So born and raised in Miami, and got started in tech at a pretty young age. And I've always been just kind of one of those kids that was always into new stuff, whether it was technology or toys or games or whatnot. So an early adopter. Got my first computer when I was a kid, and then I got my 1,000 hours of America Online via CD-ROM in the mail. And, that's what got me started on the internet, and just getting on the internet and connecting with folks. And when I was a kid, I was really into professional wrestling, like WCW, WWF, NWO. That was my thing at the 12, 13 age range. And basically on AOL, I don't know if you guys remember, they had these topic-based chat rooms. That you would go into the poetry chat or the rap music chat or the wrestling chat. And of course, as a 13-year-old dork that was into professional wrestling, I would go into the wrestling chat room and chat about your favorite wrestlers and what the storyline of the week was and whatnot. And I felt like I was pretty tech savvy. And one day a guy says in the chat room, hey, can somebody make me a fan site of the Ultimate Warrior? I'll pay them $100 to do it. And $100 sounded really good to a 13-year-old kid. And I'm like, hey, I'm tech savvy. I could figure this out. Like making a website, that's no big deal. Because remember, back then, this was, the mid 90s. There was no Facebook, there was no MySpace, there was no social networking. If you wanted to express yourself in any way, you'd have to create a website. So, I kind of, started thinking about, okay, how would you create a website? So I instant messaged this guy. I said, sure, I can do it for you. I could figure it out. And he's like, okay, great. What's your physical address? Because there's no PayPal or anything like that. So of course I'm a stupid 13-year-old kid. So I give this random guy my physical address. And a few days later, I didn't think I'd hear from him, but a few days later, I got a crisp $100 bill in the mail. And I'm like, holy crap, now I got to figure out how to build a website. So I ran to my mom's bedroom and I said, Mom, you have to drive me to Barnes and Nobles. I just got paid to make a website and I got to figure this out. And she drove me to Barnes and Nobles. I remember there was one book on HTML that was about this thick. And I spent that entire week on GeoCities HTML editor. I don't know if folks that are watching this remember GeoCities. It's like a free hosting website back in the 90s. And I spent my weekend there. And then on Monday, I delivered Jim's Ultimate Warrior fan site. And it looked like absolute garbage, but he loved it. So I was like, okay, this is cool. Let me go back in the wrestling chat room and see if anybody else wants it. So I said, who else wants a wrestling fan site? I charge $100 a pop. And 5 people said, I do. So I was like, okay, this is awesome. Making money on the internet from my bedroom as a 13-year-old.
So
I kind of wanted to do this for the rest of my life. And so that's when I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and build and kind of work for myself. So I did that for a few years. And then eBay was getting very popular at the time. And if you guys remember, like when eBay just came out, everybody was kind of sketched out by it. They're like, online auctions, how does that work? And what if they don't send you your stuff after you pay for it? So I was like learning about eBay as a platform. So I would do consulting work for mom and pop shops on Miami Beach, how to liquidate their backroom inventory on eBay and like learn the eBay platform. So I did that. That was my first couple of gigs on the internet and tech. And then I went off to Florida State University. I came back from Florida State. I started my first venture-backed company that was called Live Ninja. And that was like a video chat marketplace where you can buy and sell video chat sessions on different topics. So like imagine like what we were doing now. If I wanted like to pay you guys for like advice on a certain topic, you could charge $50. The payment would be built in. I could schedule with you guys and whatnot. So it was a little bit before its time. But we ended up raising some capital. We pivoted the business to a B2B model and we sold that company in 2017. Now, during that time, as an early adopter of tech, dabbled in crypto, dabbled in Bitcoin. I remember one of our Live Ninja experts was a Bitcoin expert. So he was like teaching us about it a little bit. Wish I would have bought a bunch more at the time.
yeah, of course.
So obviously was exposed to crypto, just working in tech and a little bit of investments, personally, nothing crazy. And then I sold my company in 2017, and in early 2018, I follow Fred Wilson from Union Square Ventures. He's a very famous venture capitalist, like one of the best in the business. And he has a great blog called avc.com. And I subscribe to it. So I get the emails. And I remember one email and blog post that he wrote, he was talking about, hey, I'm making this new investment in this company called Axiom Zen. They're renaming to Dapper Labs, and they have this thing called CryptoKitty. That's coming out. Just a heads up, it looks like a gimmick, it looks kind of childish, but trust me, NFTs are going to be a thing. And like, just Fred Wilson's a guy, like when he talks about a topic, you usually want to listen. He's really smart and kind of sees the future before it's happening. So I bought a few crypto kitties just to kind of play around with it. I'm like, okay, this is really interesting, and it's kind of combines collectibles and tech. This is really cool for me personally. I think this is a really neat use case. So again, just dabbled in it and learned about NFTs. And then coincidentally, a few months later, I had this light bulb moment. And, basically my daughter, I have 3 kids. My 2 oldest are 9 and 8. So a few years back in 2018, they were obsessed with this thing called blind bags or surprise unboxing toys. I don't know if you guys know what they are, but they're like LOL surprise, Hatchimals, these different kinds, right? Yeah. My kids were obsessed with it. I was spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on and I think like as any entrepreneur would, you get curious. You're like, why this? Like, why are you so addicted to this as like a product? So I looked up the company that were making these things and just learning about the business. And they were just, all these companies that got into the blind bag model were just printing cash. It was just such a hot seller. All kids wanted was the stuff. And because the segment of the toy industry was making so much money, every other toy company went and built blind bags because that's what everybody would want. So like all the big toy manufacturers were in the space. So I'm working from home one day, and again, I'm fascinated with this toy business that my daughter has kind of exposed me to, and how much money is being made in this industry. And one day my daughter's playing in her playroom, and I'm working from home. This is 2018. And then I hear her scream with excitement from the playroom, and she's like, "Dad, come quick, come quick. Oh my God, I got it. Finally got the ultra rare. I found the ultra rare." And I go to see what she's doing, and she's holding up this little gold glittery plastic doll. And she looks at it for 10 seconds. She's like super jacked and excited about it. And then 10 seconds later, she throws it in the bin with all the other ones just to collect dust. Like the novelty is completely worn off at that point. I'm like baffled at this and amazed at the same time. And then I thought to myself, oh my goodness, here is this multi-billion-dollar segment of the toy industry that's predicated on collectability and scarcity. We can now do these digitally for the first time ever, thanks to the technology, the underlying tech of NFTs. And I was obviously frustrated with the fact that my daughter would buy toys and not play with them. So I was like, sweetheart, what if I were to make you the digital version of these toys where you can collect them, chase after the rare ones, but then when you get them, you can actually do things with them, like games with them, interact with them in different ways. Would that be something you'd be interested in? I mean, what's a 7-year-old going to say at that point? Of course, Dad, that'd be amazing. I'd love that. So I thought to myself, okay, I sold my previous company. I was still working for the acquiring company. I had a few years left on my earn-out, so that's my full-time job, no doubt. But I was like, you know what? Nights and weekends, as a passion project, I want to build this with my daughter, and like it'd be like a father-daughter kind of bonding experience,
That's
showing
awesome.
tech and whatnot. And we did that, and I got my two co-founders from Live Ninja to moonlight with me on this project because we all had full-time jobs. And then Emil, and by the way, we're not artists by any means, I mean, everybody's an artist technically, but like I'm not a good one, So we hired a freelance designer on Fiverr to create the characters, these like basic 2D characters. And then we're working on it. And then Emilio comes to me and he says, listen, this project of yours is cool and all, but if you really want to take this thing to the next level, I got a buddy of mine that I used to work with at Disney. His name's Freddie. He's an amazing 3D artist. Let's bring him onto the team. So he joined the team, and also JT, my other co-founder and COO. And, we created this project called Cryptoys. And listen, nobody cared about NFTs whatsoever from 2018 to 2020. So we were building this side project. We were really like highly convinced this would be a big thing, like blind bags on the blockchain. We were excited to build it for our kids. And even though nobody cared about it, we weren't deterred because we were building it for our kids. We're having fun with it. I just remember like going around to meet with folks in Miami, and like, people would always ask, hey, Will, you just sold your company. Like, what are you doing next? And I remember being like, well, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly is next. But in the meantime, let me show you this digital panda that I'm working on. And they're like, uh-huh. I'm like,
cool.
It lives on the blockchain. And they're like, uh-huh, sure. And it was just kind of one of those moments where you sound ridiculous as you're telling them this story. But we were undeterred. We were building for our kids, and then eventually the market caught up with it. In late 2020, Top Shot became a big thing. And so more people were getting exposure to digital collectibles. And then we had some interest from VCs. And, I asked the team, I said, listen, if I could raise some money so we could all quit our jobs and do this full time, would that be something you guys would do? And everybody was totally in. So, we raised some venture capital because this is a big lift of a project. Like we'll get into it on the show, but this is toys and collectibles. This is, they're 3D and interactive. Then there's gaming elements, and then there's entertainment like animation and all this stuff. So you really need to have infrastructure to build this and a team. So like, if you can raise money, let's do this full time. So we were able to raise a little bit of money, and off to the races we went. So that's kind of the origin story of how this whole thing got started.
That's incredible. Yeah, I remember in 2018 when I was just first getting started with NFTs as well. I tell people about this, and they just like look at me like I had three heads. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is not going to be popular. Like, what?
Well, and you sound so insane you're talking about it. So it's like, oh yeah, let me tell you about NFTs. Well, first off, it started with Crypto Kitties. Well, actually, it was Crypto Punks. Was it Crypto Punks or was it Crypto Kitties? Like, oh, it's like, what the hell is he talking about? It's really hard for people to take you seriously when you start talking about digital cats as the origin of all of this.
I mean, it really took like big IPs getting involved, like the NBA with Top Shots. So people really start taking this stuff seriously.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. And now you're starting to see it too, like on with Marvel and Disney, you're starting to see those collectibles and how it's making people feel excited about collecting. It's really cool. I'm excited to see that.
Yep.
For our listeners out there, could you dive a little bit more into Cryptoys and tell us a little bit more about the company itself?
Sure. So the best way to think about Cryptoys is we're building the world's premier digital toy company. That's the goal, right? So if you think of a legacy toy company, like all these, toy companies have been around for a long time. Like imagine if you had the ability to create a toy company from scratch and it was digital first and NFT native. Like what would that toy company look like? And then additionally, tied to that, how do you imagine the concept of play in a fully digital world? How do you play with digital toys? So that's kind of what Cryptoys is about. And it's really cool because you have these like really poetic experiences of like owning a toy, unwrapping a toy, collecting toys. But then when you get rid of the limitations of plastic and physics, what really cool experiences could we have with toys, right? Mm-hmm. So we're kind of pushing the boundaries there. So that's the goal, is to build the world's premier digital toy company, and then building the infrastructure and the apps and the games on top of it to have really cool experiences beyond just collecting.
I absolutely love the I guess the preview video that you guys have on the website. Super, super well done.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much. And that kind of shows a little bit of our vision, because like there's really three pillars to the company. There's toys and collectibles, there's games and applications. So what can I do with these toys after I collect them? If I wanted to play with them, you can also collect them and have a passive collection. But if you wanted to play with them, what can you do with them? And then entertainment, right? Because like we're building an animated series, we're building IP from the ground up. Not are we we're doing licensing deals, and we can talk about the deals we're doing and whatnot, but we're also building our own IP from the ground up. And with that, we want to create narratives and storylines and rich characters. So that's what you saw with that trailer. Mm-hmm. So it's a really big lift of a project. I mean, just doing one of those three pillars would be a big thing, but we're trying to do all three. So it's a little bit daunting, but we're enjoying it for sure. It's worth it.
So how does gaming exactly fit into everything that you're doing? Like, what are the types of games? Is it more like mini games, or is it more like full scale, like RPG? Like what does it look like?
Yeah, let's talk about games, because I think it's really interesting, because the concept of gaming has changed over the years too. It's different than when we were kids, right? When we were growing up, there were only a few million gamers in the world, people that had consoles, people that had powerful PCs. And now if you look at the statistics, there's over 3 billion gamers in the world, thanks to the rise of casual mobile gaming. Things like Bejeweled, Candy Crush, Doodle Jump, Angry Birds, whatnot. So the interesting thing about casual gaming is it spans demographics and age ranges. Traditional gaming does too, but even more so in casual gaming. So if you look at kids that play casual mobile games, sure, but my wife, mom of 3 kids, she plays Candy Crush before she goes to bed. I was watching a flight attendant on the way back from Comic-Con, from San Diego. She was playing Toon Blast for 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see kind of the rise of casual mobile gaming. You would think casual games also look a little bit childish, but it's really for all ages to have fun. Mm-hmm. I think that's opening up a huge segment of the gaming industry that is untapped in multiple ways to serve really cool experiences too. And I think you see a lot of NFT projects, Web3 projects, and just traditional gaming projects in general. And this concept of the metaverse, right? And what that looks like, and you're going to log in and you're going to spend 5 hours a day in an MMORPG style environment. And I think there's a market for that, sure, but that's not what we're after. We're really after the more casual gaming audience that you could spend a few minutes of a time. Hey, you have 15 minutes here and there, jump into a mini game, enjoy that, build your collection, have fun, etc. So we really like to build games that we can build within a few months' time, deploy them, test them out, see if people like them, and then, hey, if it doesn't work, move on to the next thing. Because I think the danger with a lot of game developers, they could spend 3 to 5 years building a big title. And if they miss the hypothesis a little bit, that's millions and millions of dollars wasted and years of development wasted. Yeah. Where I think if you have a more nimble model of just creating fun, casual experiences, I think, gamers will enjoy that more, and you can learn more from your initial developments. So that's how we think about gaming in that sense. And then on top of that, I'm very intrigued by this next generation of gaming, like stuff like Roblox, stuff like Minecraft. And, my son, Kevin, who's 8 years old now, he plays Minecraft and Roblox. And, I think anybody that isn't familiar with the gameplay mechanics would look at him and be like, okay, he's gaming. Like this traditionally, like how we were gaming, like we were playing GoldenEye on N64 or things like that, right? Like that's how we thought of gaming and how some people think of gaming. But when I look at what my son does on Roblox, it's not that kind of gaming. It's more so like, hey, Benji, meet me over here and let's build this together. It's like an after school social activity. It's very, very different. He's really just socializing with people, like almost like if after school was a program, this is the virtual after school program. And the play pattern is very different. It's very analogous to how we played as kids in an analog world. It's just digitized in a different way. So I think the play pattern of gaming is changing rather quickly, and it's much more social. And I think bringing toys, in that industry into that world, I think is a natural fit. So I think of gaming through the lens of Cryptoys in this casual gaming realm and in this like, social, type of experience versus like a shoot 'em up game or an MMORPG kind of game, which is typically more for hardcore gamers. So that's just how I view it and how we see the Cryptoys angle kind of playing into the overarching theme of gaming.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Flow blockchain? Is there a reason why specifically you chose the Flow blockchain?
Yeah, a number of reasons we chose Flow. I think, first off, my hypothesis with blockchain in general and NFTs and Web3 is, right now you have a lot of like Ethereum maximalists and, or Solana maxis, right? And everything has to be decentralized and has to be on Ethereum. So I really, truly believe that 5 to 10 years from now, none of this stuff matters, and that the consumers are going to care about three things. I think NFTs are going to be a huge part of mainstream technology, but they're going to care about three things. Number one, is the user experience phenomenal? 2, are the fees incredibly low? And 3, do I have true ownership and liquidity of the asset? And if you achieve those three things, the blockchain doesn't matter. I think we're putting way too much emphasis on, is it on Ethereum? Is it here? Like, again, consumers don't care. It reminds me a lot of back in the day when I coded Live Ninja with my team. They would always ask, hey, what are you coded on? What's your stack? And we would say, oh, we're on a LAMP stack. We're building on PHP. And they'd be like, PHP? Bro, you're not going to make it. No way. Like, gotta be on Python, bro. Gotta be on Python. Exactly. Gotta be on Python. Gotta be building in Ruby. Fast forward to today, does any consumer go to any website and give a crap about what coding stack a website's built on? Like Facebook was PHP back in the day, Twitter was Ruby. Did anybody care about what it was built? They just wanted to know that the user experience was great and that it worked. And I think that's where we're heading towards with all this blockchain stuff. So I have to ask myself, what's the best user experience? Because that matters first and foremost. And to me, if you're going after mainstream consumers, Flow is one of the best blockchains to build on, because they take credit card payments. You don't have to get a wallet, transfer crypto, figure out what a gas fee is, custodial keys and all this stuff. You can just use it like how to buy something on the internet, just like you were to buy a product, like on Amazon, you could buy a product like a digital asset in the same way. So that's why we built Flow. We think it's the best user experience. It offers the best user experience. The fees are next to nothing, right? So like the fees are incredibly low when you compare it to some of the other options. Also, Flow is very, very environmentally friendly. And you might think that, hey, that's kind of crazy that even folks think about the environment of blockchain, but believe it or not, it's a big concern for a lot of consumers and brands, because there's a lot of, articles written about how the energy consumption of blockchain can hurt the environment and whatnot. And Flow and Dapper Labs, who makes the Flow blockchain, they've done a report that basically shows evidence that minting on the Flow blockchain is the equivalent of like 3 Google searches from an energy perspective.
Wow.
So, it's incredibly energy efficient. And that matters a lot to a number of consumers and also to brands. If you're doing licensing deal with brands, they want to make sure that they're falling in lines with, being environmentally friendly. A lot of brands we talked to early on were like, hey, yeah, we're thinking about NFTs and Web3, but we know it's bad for the environment. So whether it's true or not, the perception is out there. So you need to be working on infrastructure that shows that that's not true, or infrastructure that can make the process better and more environmentally friendly. So Flow is another reason to do that. Also, Dapper Labs, I have nothing but great things to say about that team and that company. They're incredible partners. They invested in our company as well, but that doesn't mean I have to use Flow blockchain because they invested in the company. I use it because I think it's the best product for what we're building, and also incredibly helpful people. Like it feels like we have an extension of our team with the folks at Dapper Labs. And, when you're building a project of this size, you need all the help you can get. So it was just a no-brainer for us. Like, we looked into a few options and then made a very quick decision because nobody checked all the boxes like Flow did.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about Dapper and Flow. And we did an interview with Gamesodes. I don't know if you're familiar with Gamesodes, but we interviewed them a couple months ago. But yeah, they're building on Dapper, or on Flow rather, and Dapper's also supported them, and also nothing but great things to say about them, and it shows them for very much the same reasons as well. Yeah,
they're great.
So I saw on your website that Cryptoys is partnering with the Masters of the Universe to celebrate He-Man's 40th anniversary. I was curious what that collaboration looks like with Mattel.
Yeah, so this is part of a bigger partnership that we made with Mattel, and Mattel has been incredible partners. We were just at Comic-Con with them. We announced Masters of the Universe. That's the first IP that we're working on with them. We're going to be working on a number of their IPs, but we're starting with Masters of the Universe. We're really excited about that. And that's like, if you're building a digital toy company, you have to have your own IP, and then you have to work on licensed IP, right? And like, we want to work with like really iconic brands. And when you think about toys and nostalgic toys in the 80s, it doesn't get much bigger than Masters of the Universe, right?
Yeah.
And we just got really excited. And I think before we talk about Motu, just talk about the Mattel partnership in general. They've been just amazing partners. We met with a lot of the major toy companies, as we were kind of, figuring out who could be the best partner. And we were in a very fortunate position where, we had some brand recognition as like the digital toy company. Like, this is a company focused on toyetic experiences. So we chatted with a lot of the major toy companies, and Mattel just stood hand and shoulders above the rest because of their attitude towards the space. And, again, a lot of like the brands, not Mattel, they were like, blockchain, interesting, but is this a fad? And blockchain's bad for the environment. I don't know. And can this hurt our existing line of physical toys and eat into those sales? And like, honestly, it was a very blockbustery kind of conversation.
Oh, I was just about to say that.
Very blockbustery. And Mattel was the one that was like, the future of play is becoming more and more digital. Physical's definitely not going away, but digital ain't going away. Let's try to disrupt ourselves a little bit and lean into this. And like, just their attitude and energy was infectious. And we were just like, yeah, this is our best partner for sure on so many different levels. So we were excited about, doing a deal with them. And, as part of the deal, not just the licensing deal, but they also invested into the company. We announced that they were part of our Series A funding. So they're true partners. It's not just a licensing deal. They have equity in the company, and they've just been fantastic. And I think the way we're rolling this out, first and foremost, before you're able to really service kids, you have to take care of 18 and over, because you're creating blockchain-based wallets. There's commerce involved, and you got to make sure everything's COPA compliant and all these regulations and whatnot. We're going to get to all the parent-controlled wallets and all the safeguards, but initially, the first wave of people that are going to buy it on our platform are people over the age of 18. They're people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, etc. And if you look at our aesthetic, on the early lines, if you go to our website, it's got a very 1980s Stranger Things, Tron-like kind of motif, and that's not by accident, right? Because we know that people like us, big kids essentially at heart, are going to be the ones that are buying this stuff. Nostalgia is a huge piece, like harking back to the golden age of toys, is what we like to think about it. And Master Universe is definitely a great place to start, and our characters come from 1981. If you looked at the backstory on the website and watched the video, coincidentally, that's right around the same time the Masters of the Universe IP launched. So it was just great thematically, and it tied really nicely into our storyline. So coming through the pipe, we're going to do our Genesis launch first, a few waves of that, and then Masters of the Universe. We got a number of releases that are coming over the next few months with them. So you'll see your favorite, Masters of the Universe characters, He-Man and Skeletor and Orko and Tila and the whole crew, glorified as Cryptoys, shortly on the platform.
What does that Genesis launch look like?
The Genesis launch is our own characters. It's our own 3 hero characters. The line is called ZUFO Escape. It's the name of the arcade that they escaped out of. We have 3 initial characters. And, basically you're buying these Cryptoy cubes, and inside the Cryptoy cubes, we announced the pricing for the first time just the other day. It's $39.99 per cube, so kind of analogous to buying like a physical toy. And then inside you have your Cryptoy cube. You could choose to keep it in the box or unbox it. Once it's unboxed, it'll be revealed. You'll see which Cryptoy you got inside, which character, and then which rarity. And they're built in hanger box style. Once they're revealed, they look like this.
Yeah,
and
truly like toys.
Like toys. And then it's up to you at that point. If you tap it again on the screen, the whole packaging will burn off and the Cryptoy will come to life, and then it's a playable toy. But you could actually, if you wanted, you could keep it in the packaging. And if you keep it in the packaging, there's benefits to keeping it in the packaging, like taking rewards and stuff like that. But then if you want to play with the toy, actually, you have to take it out of the packaging. And then there's other things that you can do there.
So you got to buy at least two so you can play with one and then keep one in the packaging.
Yeah.
Rocking one to stock, that's that. 100%. So the roadmap, again, this is a beast of a project as far as a build out perspective. So you got to do this in stages. So you can see the full roadmap on our website, and I encourage folks listening to go to cryptoys.com and check it out. But just at a high level, we're starting off with the toys and the collectibles, building out that infrastructure, right? Making sure that you can collect, you can run on the block, which is our test drive area. Eventually you'll be able to play some mini games. And we're focused on like those core experience, collectability, letting people build their collection, launching really cool IP, the partnerships on that, and then some interactivity. It's the block and it's mini games that we'll be releasing shortly. Then after that, we have all these different things that are coming through with like tokens that we're going to be working on and we'll be releasing on the platform. We have play sets, so analogous to like a physical play set, what the play set looks like to create new experiences. You can take your toy and do different things. Items and accessories are coming through, sometime next year. We have a mobile app as well in development. We have a whole NLP and AI layer. So we have a couple people on the team full-time dedicated to nothing else but natural language processing and AI. So you can converse with your Cryptoys in different ways. Lots of stuff really coming through the pipe. And then we're, in parallel, working on all the content, the animated series. And we're going with amazing folks behind the scenes. I'm trying to bring that to life at a streaming service or even beyond that. So, the Genesis drop is before the Motu drop. So that'll be happening sometime, I would say, in the next, 2 to 4 weeks. I would say keep your eyes peeled. Maybe right after this, you'll be able to get access. By the way, if you're listening to this, DM Twitter on Twitter at Cryptoys and say you're coming from the Comics and Crypto podcast, and we'll try to get you early beta access to some of these drops. But you got to say, from Comics and Crypto.
That's awesome.
And we'll prioritize that. Yeah, for sure. I'd like to encourage folks, and this is the Comics and Crypto podcast, so you have a lot of Web3 native people and crypto enthusiasts here, and I love that. I also hope that we could reach some of the folks that are skeptical of NFTs as well, and skeptical of Web3 because they exist, right? You guys have seen it out there as well with a lot of folks in your Twitter replies, I'm sure, and whatnot. And I think we need to get beyond the phase where, if this is ever going to become mainstream, that this is not thought about first and foremost as an investment. And I think it's important that we have the ability to make money on NFTs. I think, again, tangible ownership, being able to flip it later on, rare assets, incredibly important piece of the ecosystem. But if this is going to be mainstream, and we're looking, again, what other companies are doing with really recognizable IP, and we want to work with more recognizable IP, you have to start with fandom and enjoyment and entertainment and utility, and then let the secondary price and the flipping conversation be a byproduct of the entertainment and the utility that you provide. Whereas opposed to right now in the space, we start with speculation. We buy things and then they promise utility and entertainment down the line, hoping we get it. That's okay for Web3 degenerates like ourselves, right? When it comes to mainstream audiences, we really got to help them see the value in this stuff right off the bat. And it's not on flipping. It's about value of being a fan and enjoyment and entertainment.
Experience.
So exactly, it's creating a great experience. So when we're building Cryptoys and, we're working with this IPs, and these iconic, names and brands, we really want this to be like a love letter to fans around the world. Like when we work with Masters of the Universe, we want to be a love letter to Motu fans. Like, this is not what you think it is when you think of NFTs and like, hey, NFTs are a scam or NFTs are a cash grab and whatnot. I really, can't stand that there's the sentiment there, because again, this is a passion project. We built this for our kids to create a digital toy company, and we're fans at the end of the day. Hey, we're collectors, right? Like, I'd still love to collect even if my NFTs were not worth, hundreds or thousands of dollars. And I think what's important is that the word NFT, because a lot of people get triggered with the word NFT right now, right? It's becoming like a thing. NFTs is just the underlying technology. It's like if I told you instead of email, I told you SMTP, right? Yeah. Or if I told you HTML, or instead of a website or an app, right? Yeah. It's the underlying technology. And I think if folks are trepidatious about it, I would just say, like, listen, all the NFT infrastructure just allows the internet to become ownable, right? And if we enable internet ownership and digital ownership, what cool things can we start to enable that provide real value in fandom and entertainment? And collectibles and toys and gaming is certainly one of them. So I would encourage folks that are a little bit trepidatious about the NFT space and say, first and foremost, I understand why, right? Because there's a lot of shady behavior out there, but just start to look at it more as an infrastructure layer, and then ensure that the companies that you want to buy NFTs or digital collectibles from have an ethos that you resonate with, and that there's real use cases and value behind those projects. Because I don't think this is going away anytime soon. This is going to keep growing. I mean, you see the conversations that we're having behind the scenes. Every major studio, every IP, everybody jumping into the space. This is going to be a part of the future. But I think it's on us as companies and as a community collectively to shine the light on projects that are trying to do it the right way, and that can succeed in it, sometimes fail in trying to do it the right way, and it's okay too, but are putting forth an earnest effort in doing so. So a shout out to all the folks that are trepidatious about it. Just first and foremost, I have empathy and completely understand why. And hopefully I would love to, for you to check out Cryptoys, give me constructive feedback, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, because you're the folks that I really want to hear from the most, and see how we could bridge the gap to bring you more fandom, fun, enjoyment, to something I think is really, really exciting and a big paradigm shift that's happening in technology. So that's my closing piece on that. So.
Love it.
Well, you're awesome. I really enjoyed this conversation, man.
This was so great.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Likewise, guys. A huge fan of the podcast. It's an honor to be here, and
thank you.
I read pretty much every tweet that comes through your Twitter feed as well. So you guys keep crushing it. I think you're shining a huge light on the space. Thanks, particularly, I love the fact that, like, I think you had a Twitter thread or a Twitter post the other day where you were just like telling the community, hey, we need to stop kind of being vicious towards each other, right? Yeah. Like, hey, multiple brands, like, we can't be extremists or maximalists on any particular brand or platform or product. Like, we're all growing together. This is so early. It's like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of mentality.
Exactly.
I appreciate you guys going to bat, for the space in general. So thank you.
Absolutely.